They put a price on her head. It wasn't much. Seraphina knelt on the cold stone floor of the great hall, her wrists bound with rope, her head bowed so low her forehead nearly touched the ground. This was the posture expected of an Omega. Submission made flesh. She'd learned it before she could walk. Around her, the negotiations continued as if she weren't there, because to them, she wasn't. She was inventory, livestock, a debt payment wrapped in skin. The territory you've claimed was promised to our pack, her alpha was saying, his voice tight with barely concealed desperation. We've held it for 3 generations. Without it, we'll starve. Your pack's misfortune is not my concern. The Lycan king's voice was deep and cold, carrying the weight of absolute authority. You borrowed from my treasury. You failed to repay. The land is forfeit. Please, your majesty. There must be something. There isn't. Seraphina kept her eyes on the floor. She knew what came next. She'd known since the moment her alpha had summoned her from the servants' quarters, looked at her with those calculating eyes, and smiled. You're finally going to be useful, he'd said. The king needs to be appeased, and you're the only thing we have left to offer. An Omega, the lowest of the low. In pack hierarchy, she ranked below servants, below children, below the dogs that guarded the gates. She existed to serve, to submit, to be used however her betters saw fit. Now she was being used as a bargaining chip, and she wasn't even surprised. Wait. Her alpha's voice had taken on a new tone, oily, desperate, grasping. I have something else, something valuable. A pause. Then the king's voice, flat with disinterest. I doubt that. An unmated female, young, healthy, untouched. Her alpha's hand landed on Seraphina's head, gripping her hair and forcing her face up. An Omega, perfectly trained. She'll serve you however you wish. Seraphina's cheeks burned with humiliation, but she kept her expression blank. This was her purpose. This had always been her purpose. To be given away like a piece of furniture, to be used and discarded, to be nothing. She heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming closer. And then a scent hit her, pine and winter air and something wild underneath, something that made her wolf, dormant for so long she'd almost forgotten it existed, suddenly stir. Look at me. The command came from directly above her. Seraphina's heart hammered against her ribs, but she obeyed. She always obeyed. She raised her eyes. The Lycan king stood over her, and he was nothing like she'd imagined. She'd expected old, cruel, monstrous. Instead, she found herself staring at a man who couldn't have been more than 30 in appearance, though she knew Lycans lived for centuries. His dark hair fell past his collar. His jaw was sharp, his cheekbones cut like blades. And his eyes were amber, gold, burning. They were fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to look away, made her want to bare her throat in pure instinct, made her want to... No. She crushed the thought before it could form. Omegas didn't want, Omegas didn't feel, Omegas existed to serve. The king crouched down, bringing himself to her level. This close, his presence was overwhelming, heat and power radiating from him like a furnace. His nostrils flared, once, twice. Something shifted in his expression, something she couldn't read. What's your name? His voice had changed. Softer now, almost gentle. Seraphina's mouth went dry. Alphas didn't ask Omegas their names. They gave orders. They took what they wanted. They didn't crouch in the dirt and speak softly. Seraphina, she managed. Your Majesty. Seraphina. He said it slowly, like he was memorizing the shape of it. His eyes never left hers. How old are you? 22, Your Majesty. And you've been treated as an Omega your whole life? Kept at the bottom? Made to submit? She didn't understand why he was asking, didn't understand the edge that had crept into his voice. Yes, Your Majesty. It's what I am. Something flickered across his face. Not pity, something fiercer. Something that looked almost like rage. He stood abruptly and turned to face her Alpha. When he spoke, his voice was ice. You offer me a woman as payment for your debts. Her Alpha smiled, clearly sensing victory. Yes, Your Majesty. She's well trained, obedient. She'll serve your every... I'll take her. The words cut through the hall. Seraphina's heart stopped. And I'll cancel the debt. Silence. Complete. Absolute silence. Her Alpha's smile faltered. Your Majesty? You heard me. I'll take the girl. In exchange, your debt is cleared, your territory restored, your pack spared. The king's voice was flat, final. Those are my terms. But she's just an Omega. She's worth nothing. Certainly not. She's worth more than your entire pack. The king turned back to Seraphina, and his expression shifted again. The ice thawed. The rage banked. And underneath, she saw something that made no sense at all. Tenderness. Stand up, he said quietly. Seraphina's legs trembled as she rose. She was small, Omegas usually were, and the king towered over her. But he made no move to touch her, made no move to claim her. He simply looked at her with those burning amber eyes. Do you know why I'm doing this? He asked. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Neither do I. Not entirely. He reached out, slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal, and touched her cheek. The contact sent fire racing through her veins. Her wolf howled inside her, straining toward him with desperate need. Mate, something whispered in the back of her mind. Mate, mate, mate. Impossible. She was an Omega. The king's mate would be someone powerful, someone worthy, someone real. Not her. Never her. But the king was looking at her like she'd hung the moon, like she was precious, like she mattered. You're not property, he said, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. You're not payment. You're not nothing. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. You're mine, Seraphina, and I protect what's mine. Her Alpha made a strangled sound. Your Majesty, surely you don't mean... Get out. The king didn't turn around, didn't raise his voice, but the command carried the weight of centuries. Take your pack and leave my territory. If I ever see you again, if I ever hear that you've mistreated another Omega the way you've mistreated her, I will end you. Slowly, her Alpha fled. His entourage scrambled after him. The great hall emptied until only Seraphina and the king remained. He was still touching her face, still looking at her like she was something miraculous. I don't understand, she whispered. You will. He smiled, and it transformed his face from fearsome to beautiful. Come with me, Seraphina. You're safe now, and I have a lot to explain. She should have been terrified. She should have been waiting for the trick, the cruelty, the inevitable pain. Instead, she took his offered hand, and for the first time in her life, she felt something she'd never allowed herself to feel before. Hope. The king's name was Kalan. He told her as they walked through the castle corridors, his hand still holding hers, not gripping, not dragging, just holding, like she might break if he squeezed too hard, like she was something precious. Serafina didn't know what to do with that. "You're my mate," he said, leading her up a sweeping staircase. "Do you know what that means?" She knew the stories. Every wolf did. Fated pairs, bound by something deeper than choice. Two halves of one soul. But those stories were about alphas and other alphas. About powerful wolves finding their equals, not about kings and omegas. "It means I belong to you," she said quietly. "Even more than I belonged to my pack." Kalen stopped walking, turned to face her. His amber eyes were unreadable. "No," he said. "That's not what it means at all." Serafina's brow furrowed. "I don't understand. The mate bond isn't about ownership. It isn't about one wolf possessing another." He stepped closer, and she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. "It's about partnership, equality. Two wolves choosing each other every day for the rest of their lives. But I'm an omega. You're my mate." He said it like that settled everything, like her rank didn't matter, like 22 years of conditioning could be erased with 3 words. It couldn't. She knew it couldn't. "Omegas don't have mates," she said. "Omegas serve. That's all we're good for." Something dark passed across Kalen's face. "Who taught you that?" "Everyone." The word came out flat. Dead. "My mother, before she died. The pack elders. Every alpha I've ever served. It's not cruelty. It's just the truth. Omegas are born to submit. We don't have wolves like normal Lycans do. We don't have—" "You have a wolf." Serafina blinked. "What?" "I can feel her." Kalen's hand came up to rest over her heart. The touch was warm through the thin fabric of her dress. "She's been suppressed, beaten down, locked away so deep you've probably forgotten she exists. But she's there. I felt her the moment I saw you." Serafina's breath caught. Her wolf, the tiny, flickering presence she'd learned to ignore, stirred at his words, at his touch, like it was waking from a long, long sleep. "That's not possible," she whispered. "It is, and I'm going to prove it to you." Kalen took her hand again and resumed walking. "But first, you need food, rest, a room that doesn't smell like fear and submission." He brought her to the east wing of the castle, a section she'd never even known existed. The corridor was wide and sunlit, lined with doors carved from dark wood. Kalen stopped before one and pushed it open. The room beyond was larger than any space she'd ever occupied. There was a bed draped in blue silk, a fireplace already crackling with warmth, windows that looked out over a moonlit garden, a wardrobe, a writing desk, a private bathing chamber visible through an archway. "These are your rooms," Kalen said. Serafina stood frozen in the doorway. "I can't stay here." "Why not?" "Because—" She struggled to find the words. "This is for someone important, someone who matters. I should be in the servants' quarters, the cellars, somewhere quote, somewhere you can be forgotten, overlooked, treated like you don't exist." Kalen's voice was gentle, but there was steel underneath. "That's not going to happen. Not here. Not with me." He guided her into the room, and she moved like she was dreaming. Her fingers brushed the silk of the bedding. The warmth of the fire soaked into her perpetually cold bones. Everything smelled clean and safe, pine and wood smoke and him. A knock at the door. Kaelin opened it to reveal servants bearing trays, roasted meat, fresh bread, fruit, cheese, a carafe of wine. They set everything on a table by the window and departed with quick bows. "Eat," Kaelin said. Serafina hesitated. "Should I serve you first?" His jaw tightened. "No, you don't serve anyone anymore. Sit. Eat." It was a command. She responded to commands. That was bred into her bones. She sat at the table and stared at more food than she'd seen in months. "When did you last eat?" Kaelin asked, taking the seat across from her. She had to think about it. 2 days ago. Some bread the other Omegas shared with me. 2 days. His voice was carefully controlled, but she could feel the anger radiating from him. Not at her. She was learning to tell the difference. "And before that?" "The same. We eat when there's food left over, when the alphas don't want it anymore." Kaelin was silent for a long moment. Then he pushed the entire tray closer to her. "Eat, all of it. And then I want you to sleep, actually sleep, in that bed, for as long as you need. No one will disturb you. No one will demand anything from you." Serafina picked up a piece of bread, took a bite. It was fresh, soft, still warm from the ovens. She couldn't remember the last time she'd had fresh bread. "Why are you doing this?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "You could have left me there. You didn't need to cancel their debt. You didn't need to—" "I told you. You're my mate. But you don't know me. You don't know anything about me." Kaelin leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Then tell me." "There's nothing to tell. I'm an Omega. I was born to serve. That's all there is. That's what they made you. It's not who you are." He tilted his head, those amber eyes seeing too much. "Tell me something real. Something about you, not your rank." Serafina's mind went blank. No one had ever asked her about herself. No one had ever cared. She stopped, started again. "I like the stars. At night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd sneak outside and look at them. It was the only time I ever felt free." She braced herself for mockery, for dismissal. An Omega who likes stars. How pathetic. But Kaelin just smiled. Soft, real. "There's a tower on the north side of the castle," he said. "The highest point in the kingdom. On a clear night, you can see every star in the sky." Serafina's heart stuttered. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying it's yours, whenever you want it. No one will stop you. No one will tell you where you can and cannot go." He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "You're not a prisoner here, Serafina. You're not a servant. You're my mate. And that means everything I have is yours." She stared at their hands. His was so large, warm and steady. Hers was small, scarred from years of hard labor. Such different hands, such different lives. And yet he held hers like it was made of gold. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I don't know how to be anything other than what they made me." "Then we'll figure it out together." His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "I've waited 200 years for you, Serafina. I can be patient a little longer." She should pull away. She should remember her place. She should stop this foolishness before it destroyed her. But his hand was warm, and his eyes were kind. And for the first time in her life, someone was looking at her like she mattered. Serafina didn't pull away. And somewhere deep inside her, her wolf lifted its head and howled. She woke screaming. The nightmare had been the same one she'd had for years, the pit. dark and deep and impossible to escape. Hands reaching down to hurt her, voices telling her she was worthless, that she deserved everything that happened to her. The hands of her pack. The hands of every alpha who had ever used her as a punching bag for their frustrations. Serafina sat up in the unfamiliar bed, gasping for air. The silk sheets were tangled around her legs. The fire had burned low, casting the room in flickering shadows. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered. The king. The castle. The impossible word he'd used. Mate. A knock at the door. Urgent. Serafina? Kalen's voice. She should tell him she was fine. She should send him away. Omegas didn't burden others with their weakness. But her hands were shaking, and her wolf was whimpering inside her chest, and before she could stop herself, she called out, "Come in!" The door opened. Kalen stood in the threshold, wearing only loose sleeping trousers, his chest bare in the dim light. His hair was dishevelled. His amber eyes were sharp with concern. "I heard you scream," he said. "What happened?" "Nothing. Just a nightmare." She pulled the sheets higher, ashamed of her trembling. "I'm sorry I woke you. I'll be quiet now." Kalen didn't leave. Instead, he crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed, close enough to touch, but not touching, giving her space. "Tell me about it," he said. "It's nothing. It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." Serafina looked at him, at the genuine concern in his eyes, at the way he sat there, patient and steady, like he had all the time in the world. "The pit," she heard herself say. "In my old pack, when Omegas misbehaved, they put us in the pit. A hole in the ground, too deep to climb out of. They'd leave us there until they decided we'd learned our lesson." Kalen went very still. "How long?" "A day, sometimes 2. She stared at her hands, unable to meet his eyes. "Once, when I was 15, I tried to run away. They kept me in the pit for a week. No food, no water. By the time they pulled me out, I couldn't stand. I couldn't—" Her voice broke. "I learned my lesson." Silence. Heavy and absolute. When Kalen finally spoke, his voice was rough, barely controlled. "I'm going to kill them." Serafina's head snapped up. His eyes were glowing, actually glowing, amber light spilling from them like flames. His hands were clenched at his sides, and she could see his claws beginning to extend, his wolf rising to the surface. She should have been terrified. She should have cowered, submitted, made herself small the way she'd been taught. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand. The glow flickered. His claws retracted. He looked at her with something like wonder. "Don't," she said quietly. "They're not worth it." "They hurt you?" "Lots of people have hurt me. If you killed everyone who—" She stopped, shook her head. "It doesn't matter anymore. I'm not there. I'm here. With me. With you." Kalen turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. The contact was warm, grounding. Her wolf pressed toward him, seeking comfort, and for once Serafina didn't push the feeling down. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything." "Why don't you have a mate already? You're 200 years old. You're a king. You could have anyone." Kalen was quiet for a moment. Then he shifted closer, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I almost did, once. A long time ago." His voice was soft, distant. Her name was Lyanna. She was an alpha's daughter, powerful, beautiful, everything a king should want. I thought I could make myself love her. I thought if I tried hard enough, the bond would form. What happened? It didn't. He smiled, but there was old pain in it. We were together for 3 years. I cared for her. I tried to be a good partner, but the bond never came, and eventually, she left, found her true mate somewhere else. He shrugged, but Serafina could see the wound beneath the gesture. After that, I stopped trying. I decided that if fate wanted me to have a mate, fate would send her to me. And then I showed up. And then you showed up. His eyes met hers, and the old pain was gone, replaced by something fierce and certain. Bound and kneeling on my floor, offered as payment for a debt, and the moment I saw you, I knew. Serafina's heart was pounding. Knew what? That I'd been waiting for you. That every empty year, every failed attempt, every lonely night, it was all leading to this moment. To you. I'm an omega. You're my mate. I'm broken, damaged. I don't know how to be anything else. You're not broken. Kalen reached up with his free hand and cupped her face. His touch was achingly gentle. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You survived things that would have destroyed anyone else. You kept going when you had every reason to give up. That's not broken, Serafina. That's extraordinary. Her eyes burned. You don't know. I know enough. I know that they tried to crush you and you're still here. I know that they told you that you were nothing and you kept breathing anyway. I know that your wolf is waking up after years of being silenced because she recognizes what you can't let yourself believe yet. His thumb traced her cheekbone, catching a tear she hadn't felt fall. You are not what they made you. You are so much more. Serafina couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. No one had ever said these things to her. No one had ever looked at her like this, like she was precious and powerful and real. I don't know how to believe that, she whispered. Then let me believe it for you, until you're ready. Kalen leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. I'm not going anywhere, Serafina. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to abandon you. Whatever you need, whatever time you need, I'll wait. She could feel his breath on her lips, could see the gold flecks in his amber eyes. Her wolf was straining toward him, desperate and wanting, and for once, just this once, she didn't fight it. Kalen, she breathed. Tell me to stop. His voice was rough, strained. Tell me to stop, and I will. She should tell him to stop. She should remember her place. She should protect herself from the inevitable pain of hoping for something she didn't deserve. But his hand was warm on her face, and his eyes were soft, and her wolf was howling inside her, demanding, needing. Don't stop, she whispered. He kissed her forehead, soft, reverent, not demanding anything, not taking anything, just giving. A promise sealed in gentleness. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. Soon, he said, when you're ready, when you believe you deserve it. Serafina's heart cracked open. She was falling for him. She knew it with terrifying certainty. This king who looked at her like she was worth something. This man who touched her like she was precious. She was falling, and she had no idea how to stop. She wasn't sure she wanted to. The challenge came on the 7th day. Serafina was in the North Tower, her tower now, the one Kalen had given her, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. She'd been sleeping better, eating regularly. Her wolf was stronger than it had ever been, a warm presence in her chest instead of a flickering shadow. She was starting to believe this might be real. Then the horns sounded, 3 long blasts echoing across the castle grounds, a summons to the great hall, a challenge. Seraphina's blood ran cold. She found Caelan in the throne room, standing before a crowd of gathered wolves. His expression was carved from stone, his amber eyes blazing with barely contained fury. And there, in the center of the hall, stood a figure she'd hoped never to see again. Alpha Brennan, her former pack leader, the one who'd thrown her in the pit, the one who'd offered her as payment like she was cattle. He was flanked by warriors, 6 of them, armed and armored. His smile was oily and triumphant. "I invoke the old laws," Brennan announced, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "The trade was made under false pretenses. The king claimed the girl was his mate, but she's an Omega. Omegas don't have mates. The bond is impossible." His eyes found Seraphina in the crowd, and his smile widened. "Therefore the trade is void. The girl belongs to me, and I want her back." Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. Seraphina could feel their eyes on her, judging, assessing. She knew what they saw. Small, weak, Omega, not worthy of a king. "The bond is real." Caelan's voice was ice. "I felt it the moment I saw her." "Prove it." Brennan's challenge rang out like a bell. "If the bond is true, let her wolf answer. Let her shift. Let the court see the mark of a king's mate." Seraphina's stomach dropped. She couldn't shift. She'd never been able to shift. Her wolf had been suppressed for so long that she didn't know if it was even possible anymore. If she tried and failed, if she proved Brennan right, Caelan would lose her. The trade would be reversed. She'd go back to the pit, back to the darkness, back to being nothing. "She doesn't have to prove anything." Caelan stepped forward, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "I am the Lycan king. My word is law, and I say she is my mate." "Then you're either a liar or a fool." Brennan's voice dripped with contempt. "Pining after an Omega who can't even access her wolf. What kind of king takes a broken creature as his queen?" Seraphina flinched. The words hit her like physical blows. Broken. Creature. Nothing. She waited for Caelan to agree, to realize his mistake, to see her the way everyone else did, worthless, damaged, unworthy of love. Instead, he turned to look at her, and his eyes were soft. Seraphina. Her name on his lips was a caress. "You don't have to do this. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. I'll fight for you. I'll kill every wolf in this room before I let them take you back." She believed him. That was the terrifying part. She believed he would burn down the world for her. But she was tired of being fought for, tired of being protected, tired of being the broken thing that needed saving. Her wolf stirred inside her. Not the weak flicker she'd grown used to. Something stronger. Something fierce. "You are not what they made you." Caelan's words echoed in her mind. His faith, his certainty, his unwavering belief that she was more than she'd been told. Maybe it was time to find out if he was right. "I'll do it," she said. The hall went silent. Caelan's eyes widened. "Seraphina, you don't have to—" "I know." She stepped forward, past the gathered wolves, past the whispers and the stares. She stopped in the center of the hall, facing Brennan with a calm she didn't feel. "But I want to." Brennan laughed. "This should be entertaining. Go on then, little Omega. Show us your wolf." Seraphina closed her eyes. She reached inside herself, past the fear, past the doubt, past 22 years of being told she was nothing. She reached for her wolf, the part of herself she'd buried so deep she'd almost forgotten it existed. Please, she thought. Please, I need you. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Then, heat, blazing through her veins like wildfire, her bones shifting, her skin rippling, her entire being changing. It hurt. Gods, it hurt. But beneath the pain was something else, something glorious, freedom. When Seraphina opened her eyes, she was looking at the world from a different angle. Lower, sharper. She could smell everything. The fear rolling off Brennan, the pride radiating from Kaelan, the shock rippling through the assembled wolves. She looked down at herself. White fur, silver paws. A body that was small but strong, lean but powerful. She had a wolf. She'd always had a wolf. They'd just never let her find it. Brennan's face had gone pale. That's not possible. She's an Omega. Omegas can't. Seraphina growled. The sound came from somewhere deep in her chest, and it was nothing like the submissive whimper she'd been trained to make. It was a warning, a threat. Try to take me back, that growl said. See what happens. Brennan stumbled backward. Kaelan moved to stand beside her, and she felt his hand rest on her furred head. Gentle, proud. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the hall. The bond is real. Her wolf recognizes me as her mate, just as mine recognizes her. Anyone who challenges this, anyone who tries to take her from me, will answer to me. His eyes swept the crowd, settling on Brennan with lethal promise. And I will not be merciful. Brennan ran. His warriors scrambled after him, their challenge abandoned, their alpha's smugness replaced by naked terror. The hall erupted in murmurs, but not hostile ones, wondering, awed. Seraphina caught fragments as she shifted back, her human body returning in a rush of sensation. Did you see her wolf? Beautiful Dash Dash, the king's true mate. An Omega who can shift. Then Kaelan was there, catching her as her knees buckled, wrapping his arms around her and holding her close. You did it, he breathed against her hair. Seraphina, you did it. I felt her. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was laughing. My wolf. I felt her. She was there the whole time. I told you. He pulled back just enough to cup her face, his amber eyes bright with emotion. I told you that you were more than they made you. I didn't believe you. Do you believe me now? She looked at him, this king who had seen her worth when no one else did. This man who had waited for her, fought for her, believed in her even when she couldn't believe in herself. I believe you, she said, and I choose you, not because you saved me, not because you're the king, because you saw me, the real me, and you didn't look away. Kaelan's breath caught. Seraphina, I love you. The words came out fierce, certain. I love you, and I'm done being afraid of it. He kissed her. Not gentle this time, not restrained. He kissed her like he was claiming her, like he was sealing a promise, like he'd been waiting 200 years for this exact moment, and he wasn't going to waste another second. Seraphina kissed him back with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, the entire hall was watching. But for once, Seraphina didn't care about the stares. Mine, Kaelan growled against her lips. Yours, she agreed, and you're mine. His smile was everything. Always, he said. Forever. Mine. The mating ceremony was held under a blanket of stars. It was tradition, Kaelin explained, the oldest tradition of their kind. Two wolves binding their souls beneath the sky, witnessed by pack and moon alike. But when he'd asked Seraphina where she wanted the ceremony held, she hadn't hesitated. The North Tower. Her tower. The place where she'd first learned to look at the stars and feel free. Now she stood there in a gown of silver silk, the night sky stretched above her like a canopy of diamonds. The entire pack had gathered in the courtyard below, their faces upturned, their wolves singing in joyful chorus. Torches flickered along the tower walls, casting warm light over everything. And Kaelin stood before her, his amber eyes blazing with love. "Are you ready?" he asked. Seraphina thought about the girl she'd been just weeks ago, kneeling on a cold stone floor, bound and offered like livestock, believing she was nothing, that she would always be nothing. That girl was gone. "I'm ready," she said. The ceremony was simple. Ancient words spoken in the old tongue, vows exchanged under the watching moon, and then the marking, Kaelin's teeth grazing her neck, leaving the bite that would proclaim her as his for all eternity. It didn't hurt. It felt like completion. When he pulled back, his eyes were glowing, not with his wolf's fury, but with something deeper, softer. Love so vast it took her breath away. "My queen," he murmured. "My mate. My heart." "My king," she answered. "My everything." He kissed her, and the pack below erupted in howls of celebration. The sound washed over Seraphina like a wave. Acceptance, welcome, belonging. Things she'd never known. Things she'd never dared hope for. Things that were hers now. Forever. The celebration lasted until dawn. There was feasting and dancing, laughter and joy. Pack members approached Seraphina throughout the night, wolves who had watched her shift in the great hall, who had seen her stand against Brennan, who now looked at her with respect instead of dismissal. Queen, they called her. Our queen. She was still learning how to answer to that. Later, when the festivities had faded and they'd retreated to their chambers, Kaelin was impossibly gentle with her. He touched her like she was precious, worshipped her like she was sacred. And when they finally came together, the mate bond blazed between them, a connection so complete that Seraphina could feel his heartbeat as clearly as her own. Afterward, they lay tangled in silk sheets, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "I love you," he said quietly. "I don't think I've told you enough. I love you, Seraphina, more than I knew it was possible to love anyone." She lifted her head to meet his eyes. "I love you too. You saw me when no one else did. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." She pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. "You gave me back my wolf. You gave me back myself. You did that on your own." His hand came up to cup her face. "I just gave you the space to find her. You gave me more than that." She smiled, and it felt strange on her face. Strange because it came so easily now, because she had so many reasons to smile. "You gave me a home, a purpose, a future I never thought I'd have." Kaelin pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You gave me the same thing. I waited 200 years for you, Seraphina, and I would wait 200 more. You're worth every second." 3 months later, the news arrived. It came through the trade routes, whispers carried by merchants, confirmed by scouts. Seraphina was sitting in the great hall when Kaelin's second brought the report, and she watched her mate's expression shift from neutral to satisfied. "What is it?" she asked. Kaelin handed her the scroll. Alpha Brennan's pack has fallen. Serafina read the report in silence. After Brennan's failed challenge, his pack had begun to fracture. Wolves, who had long chafed under his cruelty, saw his humiliation as a sign of weakness. His warriors deserted. His allies withdrew. And when the neighbouring packs sensed vulnerability, they'd struck. Brennan had fled in the night. His territory had been divided among 3 different packs. The Omegas, who had served him, the ones who had suffered in the pit alongside Serafina, had been freed. I should feel bad, Serafina said slowly. He was my alpha for 22 years. I should feel something. Do you? She considered the question, searched herself for grief or guilt or even pity. She found nothing but quiet satisfaction. No, she said. I don't. Kaelin smiled. Good. He brought it on himself. You don't owe him your grief. What about the Omegas, the ones who were freed? I've already sent word. Any who wish to come here will be welcomed. They'll be treated as full pack members, not servants, not subordinates. Equals. His amber eyes met hers. It's what you would have wanted. Serafina's heart swelled. Thank you. Don't thank me. It was your idea. I never said. You didn't have to. He reached out and took her hand, lifting it to his lips. I know you, my love. I know what matters to you. And making sure no one suffers the way you did, that matters. She looked at him. This king who had seen her worth when everyone else saw trash. This man who had cancelled a debt for her, who had fought for her, who had loved her when she didn't know how to love herself. I was offered as compensation, she said quietly. Payment for a debt. They thought I was worthless. They were wrong. I know. She smiled, and it wasn't the tentative expression she'd worn in those early days. It was fierce, certain, queenly. They thought they were punishing you by giving you an Omega. Instead, they gave you exactly what you wanted. Kaelin laughed, a warm sound that filled the great hall. They gave me everything, my mate, my queen, my heart. Let them choke on their own arrogance. Serafina rose from her chair and crossed to stand before him. She was still small. She would always be small. But she no longer felt insignificant. She felt powerful. She felt whole. I hope the story spreads. I hope every alpha who ever dismissed an Omega hears about us. I hope it haunts them. It will. Kaelin stood and pulled her into his arms. The Omega who became a queen. The debt payment who turned into a true mate. It's already becoming legend. Serafina tilted her head back to look at him. Good. Let them remember. He kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise. When they broke apart, his amber eyes were blazing. I love you, he said. Today, tomorrow, forever. I love you too. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her palm. My king, my mate, my home. She'd come to this castle as nothing, a possession, a payment, an Omega with no worth and no future. Now she was a queen, a mate, a woman who had found her wolf and her voice and her power, and she had never been happier. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. More Lycan King romances are coming soon, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.